hurricane coming. Oh, don't worry about that. That's small potatoes. Why? Because we have a preseason game. We got Jameis Winston announces your starter. We got bigger fish to fry than a lowly hurricane. I'm just having fun. Here's a little distraction for you as you prepare for Hurricane Ida.
Look at uptown people like yeah. People up in Britain like yeah. Mid-city folks like yeah. People downtown man yeah.
Where you at, Hoodats? Pro Saints Talk is back minutes after the big news that Jameis Winston has officially been announced your starting quarterback. So, George, Jay, let me be the first one to say, Super Bowl! George, how do we love this? How we living, baby?
Super Bowl, we live in a lavish run, and I do want a big announcement to one new Ron. There's a new Ron out there that we have to welcome to the Ron Unity, and that is Hunt Yancey, the newest member to our community, our world. So welcome to Earth and welcome to the PST Ronhood. And so I got to pass it to our boy, Jay, who's doing the Lord's work right now. He's on the levee putting sandbags up. So if you hear some choppiness, if you hear some big waves, he's looking out for.
Can y'all hear me?
How you doing, Jay?
I'm good. I'm chasing Ida out here. Some big storm surge. But I think we're going to be okay. I just got a iced coffee from Huey on Broad Street in Esplanade. A little too much ice from my boy. Tasted delicious. I got one glaze, one chocolate, ready to rock.
Jay, that's always the scam, right? They load you all the way up with ice, and that way you get 4 sips of iced coffee. But that's an aside. That's just a little pet peeve.
Like Giannis said after his 50-piece in NBA Finals Game 6, half lemonade, half Sprite, no ice. I got to remember that pro tip from the Finals MVP.
Well, let me just say one thing that I think is a bit BS. The fact that Jay is out there chasing the storm, and we have a fellow co-owner, a meteorologist on the payroll, not accompanying Jansen in this, I think that's a bit messed up. Where's the weatherman?
The latest location that I have for the weatherman is Paducah, Kentucky. You know, Cantori's out here, probably in Venice somewhere. Where you at, Red?
Well, we're going to need to get that weather report going into this weekend. Obviously, we've got Hurricane Ida or Tropical Storm, soon to be Hurricane Ida on the horizon. So who knows what's going to happen here over the weekend, but we're still getting it in for you, for the fans, because this is just too big a news here, George. Jameis Winston, after an almost flawless performance this past Monday night in prime time on ESPN, under the bright lights, just owned it. And this is what we needed, right? We needed a definitive performance out of one of these guys to give the fans the confidence that this was totally solidified, right, George? So now that it is, what's your outlook on the season? What's changed for you now that it is official and we have our leader, our guy, Jameis?
I love it. I love what he showed us week 2 in the preseason. And like you just said, someone had to take the bull by the horns and run with it. Someone had to take this job and say, hey, this is clearly my opportunity. And Jameis did everything you could want out of a quarterback. And I'm thrilled for him. Now I'm curious on what Taysom's role is going to be on the team, because he lost a good bit of weight to play this number 1, number 2 quarterback role. And will he still have that dynamic, complex tight end role with the team? Or are we going to mix and match a little Taysom? Is it going to be 100% Jameis? Or are we going to put Taysom in certain scenarios, as you saw at the end of the Drew Brees career, to where on 3rd and 2s run a gimmick play or have him run? Is it going to be 100% Jameis or 90, 80% Jameis? And that's what I'm looking forward to as the season develops. What do you think, Jay?
Yeah, I think we all know Peyton's affinity for Taysom, and Taysom's way too good of a football player not to have a role. Obviously, Winston has more weaknesses than Breeze did, and I see that role for Taysom at least receiving snaps, that's not going to diminish any. If anything, it's going to increase a little bit. But I think it's going to be 92% Jameis, with still getting some action in third and medium, third and short, red zone situations. And it's really, I don't know how fair it was to Taysom, and I know some of it was his own doing, but a lot of what makes Taysom special are his legs, and he didn't really utilize those throughout the preseason. And I think you'll see a lot more of that in the season. I know that's not a bold take, but that's where we need him on the powerful guy like Tony Jones, 3rd and 2. You're going zone option there, Taysom in the game, and I think he can still help you in those situations, especially with lack of depth at the receiver position.
And one thing I was always worried about is whoever doesn't get the starting job, how deflated, how crestfallen are they going to be? Because, Taysom has waited so long for this opportunity because he's always been hearing, hey, the replacement's in the building, the replacement's been in the building, alluding to him. And now he didn't get the job. And I just hope that he doesn't come in not himself. And I know he's as good of a guy in the locker room as you'll ever see. And he's a great human being. But it's natural to get a bit blue given that you lost the starting job that you've been gunning for years. And I just hope that he still has that fight and vigor. And I know Sean Payton is probably the NFL's best motivator. And will he still support Jameis? Will he still be the best teammate he can be, even though he's a bit blue about not having the number one opportunity? Not opportunity, but because he had the opportunity to get the job, but he wasn't designated the starter.
Yeah, George, I think we covered a bit of this last episode where I think it's going to help his confidence and his morale that he gets to contribute in other ways, right? So I think that's definitely going to be a positive. And Jay, just circling back on a point that you made there about how we didn't get to see maybe all of Taysom's strengths this preseason. Well, I think that's because it was very intentional that he was trying to display that he can play the traditional quarterback position, be a pocket passer. So I think that was a little bit intentional. Plus, it's the preseason. You don't necessarily want him going head first, diving for a first down or the goal or the pylon. So yeah, you didn't see too much specialties. But George, just to circle back on what you said, I think it is going to still be a bit of a split. I 100% expect Jameis to get well over 90% of the snaps, but you are most certainly going to see some of that Peyton creativity come in through. And then I just want to point this out, that all this time that we've seen Jameis have some success here in these first couple preseason games, we've yet to see him as fans working with Alvin Kamara, his best weapon on offense. So to me, that should just raise the roof of expectations for the fans. I can't be more excited about the highs and the high highs that we're going to be seeing with Jameis. And so let's just turn the coin, Godfather, Boogie, the pessimists of the group, sometimes maybe the realists of the group are worried that, hey, pack your heart medicine because we're going back to the Aaron Brooks style of play. George, how concerned are you about potential inconsistencies with Jameis?
No, I don't think Jameis will be our problem at all this year. There are big concerns about this team, i.e. the Marshawn Lattimore suspension and where that leaves us at cornerback, where we are at DT depth behind Onyemata once he goes down for star caps. So there are big issues on this team. Jameis and Winston is not one of them. With Sean Payton as his jockey, so to speak, he's in great hands. He looks comfortable, says all the right things for how much that's important, but I have faith in Jameis. And a year ago today, I would have kicked myself. Right? What are you talking about, George? That's crazy. Jameis, no way. But yes way. I have faith in Jameis. I don't have a bunch of stats and, Ron Jaworski videos to point to say this is why he's going to be great. It's more instinctual that this is going to work out.
Okay, well, George, let me throw it. Let's get a number out there. Let's get a stat. So Sweaters, our UTO correspondent, he has a question: over under 10 interceptions for Jameis this year.
Over. He's gonna throw the football a lot. We're gonna be in these shootout games because of secondary woes, and he'll probably throw more than double that in touchdowns. But 10 interceptions isn't a deal breaker for a quarterback play. So it'll be right around 10 to 14, I'd say.
Okay, Jay. So bit of a two-part question here from the better Barrios. I don't know about that. That's debatable. But okay, if we're saying over for 10 picks, what is the number that maybe gets Jameis on a leash? Is there a leash until we bring Taysom back and try him out? So I guess he's asking, how much of a leash does Jameis have? What's that number of picks?
Well, thank you, Brooke Barrios, for the question, and happy birthday. Yeah, I don't think you go into it looking at it that way. I think Peyton has modeled this offense in a way where he's going to rein Winston back. If you remember when Winston was playing for the Bucs under Bruce Arians, it was a lot of those deep vertical post routes where he's just throwing it up. I heard something yesterday talking about Taysom Hill, especially in that Denver game. He made a mistake, and I think we threw the ball total about 12 times in that game. Peyton's going to call the game in a way where he's not going to let the quarterback, our own quarterback, beat us. At least I'm hopeful of that. But let's see. Like George said, we've had every indication that this guy is taking steps in the right direction. And for me, Ron, we played Jacksonville, played a depleted Baltimore team. Hopefully he continues to progress playing Arizona this weekend. But that Green Bay game, to me, although it's week one, has so much implication of what this season's going to be. Is it going to be 10-7, 11-6, or is it going to be 6-11, 7-10? Not only with the quarterback position, but with defensive line depth, with cornerback depth. And let's see how Jameis does now having Kamara back there. And let's see what Callaway is in the regular season. And if Winston can bring this progress that he's shown in the offseason and do it in a regular season game, I think that will be an excellent indication of the season to come and a way that the Saints can gather a lot of momentum going forward.
That's a great point, Jay, because, we haven't seen him in a super high leverage scenario where we got to come from behind or something like that. And so, it'd be really important to see, how's his decision making in that kind of environment. I was super tempted to go on the under on this one, but I am going to go, and for all those reasons of Peyton game planning, getting him safe throws, the shots that we are going to take are going to be just well schemed, vintage Peyton. But I'm going slightly over because I think we're forgetting the 17-game season. 10 is a real tough number to meet. So, okay, we are like almost 15 minutes into this, and we haven't talked about Marquez Callaway and those two insane catches. George, was this the coming out party? What is the ceiling for Marquez Callaway this year?
Man, this is what the doctor ordered, because we can't get any good news from Mike Thomas, as now you hear all these crazy Antonio Brown-esque hotel landlord lawsuits. It's like, God, man, when was the last time we got any good news from Mike Thomas? I'm not trying to go pessimist. I'm trying to go optimistic. I want to talk about Marquez Callaway because we need this guy to come out. There was a play where Jameis was blitzed, and he didn't freak out. He saw that Callaway was on a one-on-one coverage, and pew, hit him right in stride. And that just shows you, if he's ever in a jam and he sees that Callaway has one-on-one coverage, that's his man. That's his dog. That's who we're going to. And that's maybe the best thing we need as we're looking for potential ways to get out of this Mike Thomas conundrum, dilemma. So I don't want to give you, that's the name I want to reiterate. The name I want to reiterate is the fact that I love Callaway's trajectory.
Right.
Trajectory.
So, George, let me just make sure we totally cross this one off here. So, Keith Field Collinsworth, is he going to be a household name this year?
Keithfield Collinsworth asked a wonderful question that took us a longer time to read than the first Game of Thrones novel, but a couple weeks ago about the development of the receivers. And Curtis Johnson, Steve Levy-Greasy, those guys did a great job of highlighting how this staff has developed receivers. And we need to give that some credit on this podcast as well. A guy like Marcus Callaway, this wasn't his coming out party, Ron. He showed great flashes last year. I think he proved, I forget the guy's name from Northern Colorado last year, but he had all the hype around him at receiver, Emmanuel Butler. And then the first pass in the preseason goes off his face mask. I mean, this is a guy in Callaway that's actually living up to that hype and showing that he can be a number 2 guy, maybe even a number 1 guy. But, I mean, credit to the Saints coaching staff and what they do at receiver. I mean, just looking back through Peyton's tenure, that would be a great Church-Apisica game to think about all of the homegrown receivers that the Saints have developed. And I'm even hopeful about, I forget the guy's first name, but White from the Bears, number 7 pick, has been banged up. I know
Kevin White.
I know the obvious observation, Ron, would be the dude dropped 2 balls right in his hands. But I think you saw a guy that was drafted in the top 10, potentially on his last opportunity, where the bright lights were a little bit too bright. But what I saw in those 2 plays was a big guy that could run in and out of his breaks quickly. They talked about how he can be the Devery Henderson, Robert Meacham in this scheme. And a team that is thin at receiver, I would love to see him progress and be the 4th or 5th guy and develop throughout the season. And hopefully in the Arizona game, he catches the balls that are thrown to him and gets a chance on this team, because athletically, physically, you saw why the guy was the number 7 pick. He just couldn't stay healthy.
Jay, you're a pro's pro, and you know why? Because I was going next to Witt from Abita, not Jesu Witt, but he was asking, hey, is it the coaching staff and not necessarily Breeze that develops these receivers and makes them look so good over the years? So that's why you're a pro's pro right there, Jay. Okay, so hey, now we're at the 19th minute of this podcast, and we haven't talked about the just disruption, the damage, the rampage that Davenport was on. And George, is he starting to earn a new nickname? I mean, it's just week 3 of the preseason, but did we come up with a new nickname for Davenport this week?
Davin Bank, take it to the bank, cut the check, Gale in his contract year, and our boy showing out. You hate to see it. Where has it been? Why are you waiting for the contract year to show the world what you can do? Welcome to the NFL. Welcome to the NFL, Marcus Davenbank. I don't know where you've been the past 3 years, lollygagging, picking flowers. Welcome to the NFL. We knew you had it in you all along, but here you are showing that you belong. Kudos to you. Tip your hat. Don't do it in the regular season. Jay, I just swallowed my own vomit. You like Kevin White? Oh, yuck. Yuck. The lights are too bright in the preseason. The Superdome has a lighting issue, a Caesar Superdome lighting issue. But they're
are a little bright, and bookmark the minute marks. Bookmark this one, Ron. Kevin White is going to make some plays this year if he makes the team.
Kevin White isn't making the team. Jay, another mistake. Emmanuel Sanders, Northern Arizona. There's no Campbell Robinson or Stat Ron anymore, so we have to.
No, you were wrong last week. You were wrong last week when you corrected me. Emmanuel Butler.
Yeah, Emmanuel Butler was in Northern Arizona. Did I just say Emmanuel Sanders? I'm sorry, guys. But Jay, I want to tell Jay one thing.
Emmanuel Sanders, SMU. Come on.
You're a true saint, because I love what you're doing. I want everyone to appreciate this. Jay is helping the community while talking Saints. You can't get more New Orleans than that. He's stacking sandbags on the levee right now, and I just think that's great. So hats off to Jay for all of his hard work.
I don't quite see the eye yet, so I'm not. Don't give me too much credit. But it looks like it's upon us.
All right, back to Davenport, please, because George, I know we're overexcited, and I know we just played the Jaguars, who have an atrocious offensive line. I think one of y'all said it during the game. Man, if only we could play Jacksonville every week. But the bull rush really was in mid-season form, and he was getting that penetration. He looks like he might be finally getting healthy. He's got the power. He's got the athleticism. We know that. And yeah, as we talked about before, if we could just get a couple more moves, that'll come. But hey, you don't want to flash everything in the preseason here. But yes, we did talk about this. What, Jay?
Sorry to cut you off, but not to temper any excitement, but the Saints, 2 first-round picks for Davenport, and when he came into the league, he was a little Rottweiler puppy that wasn't ready. Last year, if he was healthy, he's grown into it. This year, with everything on the line, looks like it's put some fire in his heart. He's making plays. He's being disruptive. But golly, can we just see him like clobber the quarterback with the ball in his hands from the backside one time? He's such a pro at being so close, especially to the quarterback. I just want to see him hit the quarterback with the ball, like get a sack.
Wouldn't we all, Jay? Wouldn't we all? All right. So look, if we really want to temper it down, where the heck is Peyton Turner? This feels like it's early. It's early. I know he's dealing with injuries, but doesn't it just feel like deja vu all over again with Marcus Davenport, where you waste this first-round pick on a guy that come in because you're thinking that you're giving up on Marcus Davenport, and he's buried on the depth chart. We haven't even seen him really make any plays. He's missed a ton of practices here. George, what's your level of concern here with Peyton Turner?
Not that much, because even though Davenbank isn't sacking the quarterback, he's at least on the planet Earth, when before he was just in left field lollygagging. So no, because that guy Tano, I don't know how to say his last name, from Kansas City, he's looked okay, and we know what we have in Granderson. So earlier in this offseason, we thought DN, we were super thin. But I've seen enough where we have the track record from the other guys to know that we're not super depleted at that position. So in the end, not that concerned.
Right. So that just sounds like we just made a bunch of excuses that, we feel like we're compensating for him. So I just don't want to – I want to hold everybody the same standard on this podcast. All right. Because I know if Boogie were here, he'd be making it known that where the heck is Peyton Turner. So he didn't have
2 first-round picks for his price tag. His price tag was half that. So it's not the same comparison. Apples and oranges.
Okay. Still a first-round pick. Okay. So it's still got some weight
and
to
Ron,
it, George.
Ron, we will. If the Saints are going to make a run, they will need the first-round pick to be an impact, especially with a defensive line that has Onyemata suspended. What a luxury it would be if you can move Davenport or Cam Jordan inside in those passing situations and have a guy like Peyton Turner on the edge rush the passer.
Absolutely. And that's what I'm getting at. Okay, next topic. We did suffer some setbacks this past weekend. It wasn't all roses, especially at tight end position. Okay, we had our boy Troutman go down. Thankfully, that MRI came back with nothing serious. And now our boy Nick, maybe the biggest Ron on the team, my dog Nick Vanette, smoking hot baby's got total Ron. Now he's out 2 to 4 weeks. So all of a sudden, having that pleasant surprise of Juwan Johnson, all of a sudden you're like, I hope Juwan Johnson's the guy. George, how we feeling now at tight end as opposed to a week ago?
Ring, 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 ring. Call Philadelphia. Ertz price tag is around a 5th-round draft pick. Make it happen. Good character guy we need in the locker room. Got a track record with Malcolm Jenkins. He's what the doctor ordered for what we need in our huge vacancy at tight end. I say, hey, make the phone call. You're not going to count on him too much this year. Very much of a Josh Hill plus type role, and let Johnson be your guy making plays downfield. But you're right. We're super thin. We have to make a move. Zach Ertz, he's on the trading block. I say you have to at least call and see what the price tag is officially.
And the Saints have cap money, right? I mean, whoa. Like, did we just say that? Yeah, we have like $10 million in cap space that doesn't mean you got to go spend it. But yeah, a guy like Zach Ertz could be an absolute playmaker in this offense, right? So to me, and those are confirmed rumors. We're not just starting that here on this podcast. So yeah, why wouldn't you just test the waters, see what the price tag is, like George is saying? So yeah, and then Jay, how much of, I guess, a consolation prize is it now that Taysom's going to be your backup quarterback and has the potential to fill in here as well? I mean, that gives you some relief, but he's not a blocking tight end, right?
Yeah, he's willing to stick his face in there and block, and he'll get the job done. Good short yardage pass catcher, short hands. You saw him as a threat in the red zone last year. The game in Atlanta stands out with that touchdown. If anything, Ron, he adds depth, and I find myself a lot throughout this podcast already saying the word depth as much as George has said just what the doctor ordered. And I think that is a key for this team, is just being able to stay healthy, right? If they're going to be a good team that's going to be something to mess with down the stretch, there's not a ton of depth on this team. And you're depending on guys like undrafted guys a year ago, like Marquez Callaway, to be your number one receiver, depending on a guy from Oregon, undrafted Juwan Johnson, that came in as a receiver that got moved to tight end 3 weeks ago, essentially to be your number one tight end. And, you know, the more of those situations, the less the numbers, the odds work in your favor. So hopefully we're able to stay healthy. Scotty Patton and that training staff can keep these guys healthy throughout a 17-week season. But George, to me, that is a no-brainer for a fifth-round pick to go out and get a guy like Zach Ertz, the most storied tight end in the history of the Philadelphia Eagles franchise, who's been replaced by a guy like Goddard from South Dakota, Jackrabbit. Bring Ertz in. It's not like you're talking about Josh Hill role. This guy in 2019 went for a ridiculous year on the stat sheet. I think he had over 1,000 yards. I don't know how many touchdowns he had, but he was injury plagued last year. This is a guy that can come in and be your tight end one from day one. Yeah, no,
I think we're all in agreement there that you got to go get that guy. I mean, if that's what the price tag is, just like Jay said, that's a no-brainer. All right, depth. Jay, great word, great theme here, because the next one I wanted to cover was maybe something that fans did not expect going into camp and preseason this year is a running back battle here for the number 2 spot. But it certainly seems that way, George, that I guess if you were a betting man, who's going to be getting more snaps, more carries this season? Latavius Murray or up-and-comer Tony Jones Jr.?
So a couple of weeks ago, a lot of the beats were floating the idea that Latavius might get cut because he's looked slow and lethargic in camp and hasn't shown his explosiveness or any explosiveness. And then, lo and behold, that translated directly into the preseason. I think he's averaging 1.9 yards a carry. And now it seems like he's on the outside looking in. So at this point, Ron, I sense Latavius will be a cap casualty. He's got about $4 or $5 million. I think we can recoup all of it if we cut him. And then the obvious answer is Jones Jr., because you have Dwayne Washington, who's a phenomenal special teamer and fantastic at what he does on special teams. They can run the ball in a pinch. You also have Ty Montgomery, who is a wide receiver / running back playmaker, and he can fill in as a pinch. And running backs are a dime a dozen nowadays. You can always, Freeman, we're kicking the tires on him. I'm sure we'll cut him at the end of training camp. But once there's a injury, he'd probably be the first guy we call to come in and give the ball, 5 to 10 times a game if needed. So a lot of options at running back. Long story short, I don't see Latavius making this team unless something drastic happens in the coming week.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, right? You got a lot of mileage on the guy, 9 years experience. He's 30 now. So, yeah, George, you don't know. I mean, you might be able to cut him. He clears waivers. You bring him back for nothing, right? So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Latavius, but it's just an interesting storyline that I don't think a lot of people foresaw going into this camp, especially even after that first week where, yeah, Tony Jones showed you the flashes, but he also showed you the fumble. So we'll see. That's going to be a really interesting topic as we go forward in this last preseason. But I want to hit just a couple fan questions here, George, before we wrap it up. So, one, who is the first? And this one's contextual, right? Because a lot of people are going into this weekend with their fantasy drafts. I know for one, us, the Rons on this podcast and our fellow Rons, our draft is in jeopardy thanks to Ida. But the fans need to know who's going to be the first non-AK-41 Alvin Kamara Saint taken off the fantasy draft board. And that's coming from our good buddy Bird.
If guys are really following the team, you'd probably say Callaway. But it's not crazy to draft Jameis because Jameis is going to be in some shootout games, like we've talked about all off season. His DB, the Saints DBs are going to be rough, borderline abysmal at times. So in order to keep up, we're going to have to throw the ball. Sean Payton loves to throw. Anyone listening to this podcast does not need a reminder of that. So Jameis, a lot of people want to wait on the quarterback. A lot of good quarterback options out there, fantasy-wise. So if you want to say, I'm not drafting a quarterback to the end, go get Jameis because he's going to put up some good fantasy numbers at the end of the day.
Yeah, George, I think that's a great answer. Definitely for our league. We got 6-point passing touchdowns. The quarterbacks come off the board a little bit quicker. But yeah, Callaway is a great one. I mean, I think he set the bar very, very high with those incredible catches this past weekend. I don't think he's getting enough acclaim for how difficult those catches were. But okay, this is a fun one. I laughed pretty hard when I saw this one come through here from our boy Hey Big. But relevant because we know we got Onyemata on a substance abuse, whatever, PED suspension. And I know we dropped the Star Caps reference before, but if all three of us Rons did as many Star Caps as Onyemata, who would go full Ron the fastest? And, you can take that translation to mean what you want. But, George, let me start off with my answer here. I'm going to go with myself here just because, one, I am Ron. Two, I think I have the farthest to go, the farthest to gain with the Star Caps, maybe the farthest to lose if we're talking about weight here. So I'm going to say I got the highest ceiling. If I get on the Star Caps, next thing you know, I'm in the tanning beds and we're just going full Ron. George, what do you think about the Star Caps there?
I think ever since you started working at that power plant, you just have that crazy look in your eye. And I don't know if it's an effect from radiation or what, but you just have this crazy look in your eye most of the time. So without a doubt, full Ron equals Ron.
I think Jay's got potential there just because he's got the big social media presence, with the realty game. But, that's just my 2 cents on that one. Appreciate that one from our boy Hey Big. There was one here from Hazemal about, are we worried about the quality of blocking on the outside without Traquan Smith? He's been banged up. I'm not too worried about the blocking on the edge. George, you worried about the blocking on the edge?
No, because one thing CJ told Robert Meacham that he took to heart, and now you see every wide receiver for the Saints doing it. Fall slow. You don't need to be a good blocker. You just need to fall slow on the guy you're blocking. You can even fall back. Just take him with you. Don't get that holding call. CJ is very good about turning a wide receiver who focuses on speed into a suitable blocker. And we gave CJ a shout out earlier this podcast and was overdue to start showing him more praise because he makes a lot of diamonds with what he's given.
Oh, yeah. I mean, hey, as a former wide receiver myself, hey, I had a stellar career. Everyone knows that. Shout out to my boy Kuhn Dog on this one. But we had a phrase, that we always said in the wide receiver talk the talk, but stalk the stalk when it comes to the blocking. So you got to get your hands on them, got to get those feet moving, stay in front of them. And great advice there, George. Fall slow. All right. So I think that's all we got for this week, George. This was a fun one, just a quick hitter on a Friday morning. So excited about the outlook of the season, the future of the Saints with Jameis at the helm. I think I heard a great little anecdote this week about him from Ryan Fitzmagic that said when he was in Tampa that he'd never seen anybody work harder than Jameis. His only advice was for him to go home more. He stayed at the building so long. I mean, that's what you want, right? So we're so pumped. We're so excited about the Jameis era officially kicking off. George, any final thoughts before we wrap it up here?
We lost Jay. Prayers for Jay. Hope that hurricane didn't sweep him away. Big shout out to our man. That was really great of him to go contribute to society and to New Orleans like that. So, breaking alert. Now, breaking news. Here is Red's weather report.
Hey, Rons, it's Red, the weatherman. And this Saturday, your New Orleans Saints are taking on the Arizona Cardinals at home for a 7 p.m. kickoff in the Caesars Superdome. Anyway, let's get straight to the weather, as this looks to be the calm before the storm. Literally. Anyway, Rons, with a high of 86 degrees, it's going to feel more like 96 degrees, with a brisk 12 to 15 mile per hour wind out of the east to keep us nice and cool while we tailgate. But let's be real, Rons. We play in a dome. It doesn't matter. It's going to be 69 degrees at kickoff. But let's get straight to the real story of the weekend, which is going to be the looming Hurricane Ida in the Gulf of Mexico, which looks to be making landfall this Sunday. Hey, Rons, don't mess around with this. Take this serious. Go get your gas. Go get your water now. Be prepared. If you got to evacuate, then evacuate. And remember, Rons, whether you like it or not, it's Red, the weatherman.
All right, y'all. Next time we talk to y'all, preseason will be over. We'll be talking about the real thing coming around the corner with Green Bay. So with that, we'll wrap it up. We out.
Aaron Brooks and the Saints will have one more shot at it. 6 seconds to go. Saints down by a touchdown to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Brooks. Dante Stallworth catches it, stays in bounds. He's going to have to score on this one. And he's got a chance, getting a couple of blocks. Laterals it over to Michael Lewis. Back to McAllister. Still alive. Oh, and they got